But what does that vetting process look like? So it sounds like you're being very selective. And how do you go about doing that?
I mean, to be honest, I do have to be attracted to the man. So there's that. So once we get past that, then I can, really delve in and read like, okay, what is this man about? What is he talking about here? But after that, it then becomes about, do I feel that this person has enough self-awareness that they're not going to, come in and like destroy my life? Or often, if we have things in common or things that are, things that I feel like we would resonate and there would be enough conversation for us to go. Often I'm researching them on Google, or I often ask for social media because I want to have, I know, I already know, I know you because I've heard this on your podcast. But I do. I want some social confirmation. I want some sense of who the person is, not just what they wanted to show me on their online dating app. I'm like, that's just what you wanted to show me. Let's see a little bit more. And then I'll go on the date.
Yeah, I totally respect that approach. And it sounds like a very safe and grounded place for you to come from when you are primarily meeting partners through online dating.
Yes.
There are a lot of unknowns out there when we only get what 5 or 6 pictures and 3 or 4 prompts and a certain number of characters for our bio.
Mhm.
You're 100% correct that like people are showing you what they want you to see.
Yes.
And when I was online dating, or I would be online dating, I would write my profile, let it sit for like a week or two and do some interaction and engagement, and then actually look at the type of person that was being drawn to my profile, go back and look at it and actually need to change it. Because
Yes.
I'm like, all right, what is it about my prompts and my engagement on the app that's bringing this same type of person that's wired into my programming to me?
Yes. Totally. And I would say the same for me because historically, the way that my, Hinge was set up, and before that it was Bumble, the way that those were set up was, yeah, it was to attract an enticing, narcissist, basically, without me understanding that. I was like, here, look, I'm exciting, I'm fun, I'm this, I'm that, I could people please you. You know what I mean? And it's like, and now mine is so authentic that I almost was afraid. I'm like, this is going to scare people off. They're going to be like,
Mm.
she really knows what she wants. She's very clear. She knows
Mm-hmm.
what she's about. And at this point, I'm like, yeah, and that's right.
I relate so much to that. The most recent time that I was on Hinge, I do prefer that app over all others. However, they've made one change in the last, I don't recall when they made the change because I'll be on the app, I'll take a break,
Yes, me
and then
too.
I'll come back to the app. But recently they made a change that I'm disappointed in, that the selectiveness on family plans is not as definitive as it used to be. Like, I only want to match with people that don't want children in the
Right.
future.
Yes.
And that selection is no longer there the last time I used the app. And that to me felt less authentic. So I share
Yes.
that because what I heard you describing is like, I'm weeding out people I no longer want.
Oh,
And I'm
yeah.
getting fewer matches because I'm doing that. And those fewer matches are actually better quality matches for what I'm looking for. Is
Yes.
that what I heard you describe?
Yes, and I wouldn't say that there's any fewer matches as a result of me changing it up. I feel like it didn't change that. It just, I feel like it just helped the odds of me getting onto a date with a guy who literal first date tells me that he feels superior to everyone else in his life. And I'm like, things like that. Like, I feel like it's going to limit the amount of things like that that I'll have to, go through on some dating,
Right.
on dates. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but that part about how they took that off, I understand that, and it's funny because 'cause I've heard you talk about that, in some of your other shows, but and I am a person who's more mysterious about that on there, and I have my reasoning is because I have a 23-year-old son, and
Mm-hmm.
often if you have kids or if you put it, so I just leave it all like, "We'll talk about it," because I don't have little kids at home. I have a
Mm-hmm.
23-year-old, you know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
so I yeah, I always I don't know. It was interesting when I found out that you didn't want to have any more kids, and I was wondering, do you let them know that before you even go on the first date?
I do. And for me, I choose to do that so that it saves me time and it
Mhm.
saves them time. because
Exactly.
I would not want to show up on a first date with somebody who does want more kids
Exactly.
and I don't, because that's not a match. That's out of alignment for my future plans. And I'm not doing them any favors, which means I'm not showing up authentically.
Yes.
Recently, I was set up on a first date by a former client of mine. She was a client for like 6 or 7 years. She knows me very well. And I'm sitting on this first date. I didn't do much vetting beforehand. I was at a season in my career where I was extremely busy, but still open to meeting new people.
Mhm.
And so I didn't necessarily vet that piece of the puzzle. We
Yes.
show up on this first date, and she was emphatic that she wanted at least one child. And I thought about that for a moment. I'm like, I need to be more clear with my friend group who is setting me up
Yes.
that I don't want more kids, and please don't set me up to save both of us time, and whether feelings are involved or not on a first or second date until you discover that. But I actually need to be more clear. And that's how I show up on the app as well, of like, I want to be extremely clear.
Yeah.
I don't say I have a 19-year-old daughter, but I do make it known that I have more kids. I don't want more kids.
Yes. Hmm. Yes. Yes. And I let them know in conversation where I'm at with that, because I'm
Right.
open to it still, but I understand these are things to talk about before we get on the first date. Mhm.
Yeah, I completely respect where you're coming from there, because it depends on what we're looking for. Like if our intentions for online dating is just casual dating or um,
Yeah.
physical intimacy, and that's it, then we can actually widen our parameters, our
Yeah.
filters. We can
Right.
be less selective
Mhm.
because it's more short-term thinking, and that's okay. That's totally fine. I've
Yeah.
been there before in my life too. At this point in my life, I'm looking for more long-term
Yeah.
relationship with somebody I can connect and co-create my life with.
Yes.
And if that's what I'm looking for, then I want to be very, very specific and very clear. And I'm
Yes.
on the flip side, I don't have very many matches when I get on Hinge because of that reason.
Also, I think that I do just because I'm female.
Mm.
So I think that that's you know, yeah.
Yeah. What do you feel is the difference between the two? Like, my experience has always been fewer matches and being selective. So I get fewer first dates. So what is the difference there on online dating for men and women?
I'm thinking about, should I talk about it from a subconscious standpoint? But in my experience, I mean, women, the men come after us more. They're being in
Mm.
their masculine and they're coming after us more. So
Hmm.
and the men, okay, in my experience, the men aren't as choosy about it. Us women are back here and we're like, okay, well, if I want someone to, make sure they could keep me safe and this and that, and they're looking at, is he a
Hmm.
provider? Is he, going to be protective of the kids, or would he be a good father? Things like this. Women are thinking about all of these things, and men are more thinking about, she's hot. I want to go to the date with her, and what do I have to do to get on the date? In my
Hmm.
experience, not you, of
Hmm.
course, because you're, in a whole different world, but a lot of men, I do feel that's the energy.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And coming from a man's side, I can understand how men doing the pursuing on online dating shows up in a way of like, hey, I'm doing more of the work of like on Hinge, liking other people's profiles, and then I get more of a
Yes.
response from that. And it's just the numbers game that we're talking about there. The more activity I choose to do on the app, the more matches I get. It's not like I build a profile and then I get 40 people liking my profile. That's not the way
Right.
it's worked for me.
Right. And as a woman, it's funny because I don't actually do the swiping thing that often, because I don't have to, because it will just alert me, maybe, 4 or 5 guys a day, and it'll be like, these guys like you. You like any of them? You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And
Hmm.
like, I've heard that like men have to pay for all of their online dating, and I'm like, oh, us girls, we never have to pay.
Hmm.
And so it's an interesting, but I do believe that that's part of our energies of being the masculine energy. We're almost waiting for you guys to come let us know, like,
Yeah, that sounds like it's aligned with how I approach online dating. And um, one reason why I do and prefer Hinge is for that, is like it will alert the other person, hey, this person enjoys your profile. You get the choice to
yeah.
actually engage. And one of the most common things that I hear via TikTok, Instagram, and then with working with my clients is that, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed by the volume of conversations that I have going on. And one thing I want to pose as a question, just out to the out, not hypothetically per se, but just out to the audience of like, when you're using a dating app and you see that you have 50 matches and you can't juggle that many conversations at any one time. On Hinge, the question I want people to ask themselves is like, how many of those people that like me am I actually accepting and beginning the conversation? So what I'm asking, what can I take responsibility of in accepting 50 matches, as opposed to just, oh, I've seen that I got 50 matches in the last month. I only chose to speak to 10 of them.
Yes.
Does that
Yes.
resonate? Was that clear?
Yeah, like for myself personally, when I am faced with that situation, I cannot engage with many people at once. I'm like, no, thank you. I would just like to do one at a time and see if, we talk well, and if not, it's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I do hear my girlfriends get really like upset and frustrated about the amount of men they're talking to and all this, and it's work and it's taken away from their job, and they're pissed about it. And I'm like, I don't have that experience with it. I just find it to be delightful. And I'm like, oh, this seems like a man that maybe I could give some, attention to see if we're a good match.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for me, it dilutes the conversation to be in conversation with multiple. I mean, one or two, that's fine, or maybe even three when you're, just getting to know people. But other than that, I'm like, it's just too confusing. I can't remember
Right.
who I've talked to what about and all that. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Thank you very much for that. That does clear things up for me. And when you hear your girlfriends talk like that, do you find yourself asking like okay, I'm going to ask this question to myself first of like, okay, what responsibility can you take there? Like if you're overwhelmed with the number of conversations that you're having going on there, is the responsibility that you can take there accepting that many conversations to put yourself in a place of overwhelm and frustration and like, I can't talk to this many people.
Yes.
Do you
Well,
find
with my
yourself there?
girlfriend, yes, but with my girlfriends, I'm more of a listener, and if they ask for feedback, I give it. But when I've got the coaching hat on, I am like, can we just rewind a minute and what you just said there? Can we just take a look at that? Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Right. I can respect that approach of like not giving unsolicited advice to our friend group.
Yeah, right.
And in our coaching businesses, we're asked that. But I still like to be very clear of like, are you asking me to
Right.
listen? Are you looking for support? Or are you looking for suggestions right now?
Yes.
And about 1/3 of the time, I get the response, even from my clients, of like, yeah, I'm actually looking for suggestions
Yes.
right now.